Hey there, it's Kurt here. I have a quick review of a 2019 Subaru Outback, and I had my 2012 Impreza sent in for a valve spring recall, and they gave me the 2019 Outback as a loaner car. Had it for about 1,000 miles, so I got pretty comfortable with what the car does and all the different features of it. And so I'm going to go over some of the things that I thought were really cool about it and the things that I didn't really like about it. I'm not going to go over any of the spec sheets or the horsepower, all those nitty-gritty details. You can look those up anywhere online. Unfortunately, I didn't get to get an outside shot of the car before I turned it in. They were planning on keeping my car an extra week, and they ended up getting my recall done a little bit sooner than expected, so I had to turn it in the next day. So I didn't get any exterior shots of the car, but we all know what a 2019 Outback looks like. It's not a sporty car, it's meant for a family, or I know in my area a lot of older people get them because they're really functional cars, and they're not quite a full-size SUV, so they still get pretty good gas mileage. They're easy to get into and out of because they're not really high up off the ground. So those are some of the things that people buy them for typically. And one of the other things I would really want to talk about is the transmission. It's a CVT, which is good for some things and not so good for others. Obviously, if you like the idea and the sound that a traditional automatic makes when it shifts gears, it doesn't really have that. When a CVT is tuned for performance, it should just rev straight up to its peak horsepower and stay there. And on my 2012 Impreza Sport, it actually does that. The RPMs just stay at peak horsepower. In the Outback, it doesn't do that. It has pre-programmed shift points to make it feel like a more traditional automatic transmission. And it's not a big deal because this isn't really a sporty car, so you're not too concerned with performance. It doesn't feel very fast. It feels about the same speed as my Impreza, which has a little bit smaller engine. But the shifts they're smooth, but it's just kind of weird that they put them in there. When you're going slow, you don't really notice it too much because you're not hammering on the throttle, and it's not really trying to get up and go. So the first thing I noticed is this one has a really big touchscreen here, and it's actually really cool. I usually don't like touchscreens because my wife's Grand Cherokee has one. It's a small one, and I have to go into that if I want to change some of the settings. Like if I want to turn on the heated seats or the heated steering wheel, I have to go through the settings, and it's kind of hard to do while you're driving because you can't really feel the difference between where the different buttons are. But with this car, really there's only a few different apps up here, and I really don't use many of these apps while I'm driving, which is nice. So basically all I use is the radio, and the controls for the radio are actually right here on the steering wheel. So if I want to change the station to my presets, I can swap through them here, change the volume here, and I can do all that here and use your phone, answer and hang up your phone. So I don't actually need to take my hands off the wheel to use the radio, which is really nice. And the other thing I really like is that all the climate control buttons and switches are all down here, and they're all actual buttons. They're not through the entertainment system, they're not through the touchscreen, so I can just feel. I don't have to take my eyes off the road when I'm driving. You can sync both sides. If you change this side, it swaps them and unsyncs them. You can change the fan speeds, heated seats. So I actually don't really use the touchscreen for anything in here, which is awesome. It looks really cool though. I like the way it looks a lot. Everything's set up really nice. There's two cup holders. Yeah, that's pretty standard. I like the all-weather rubber mats. They're really nice. And I don't know why you would ever get a Subaru without all-weather mats. And this is a little upgrade. If you use cloth mats in the winter, somewhere where they salt the roads, you know that they are worthless. And you'd be better off putting newspaper down than cloth mats because they just soak up everything. So this right here is the smartest thing I've ever seen in a car, and every single car should have it. This little handle, and watch here. It's magic when you pull the handle. The back seat flips down. How often do you get in the back trying to load something big and you can't fit it, and you got to walk around to the side doors to fold the seats down? mount with these little handles here. Very, very nice to have. These seats, I don't usually hate cloth. I usually really like cloth because it doesn't get really hot in the summer and it doesn't get really cold in the winter. But I'm not sure I'm feeling this kind of checkered pattern it has. It kind of looks different in the video than it does in person. It's kind of shiny. I don't know, not my favorite choice of materials. I like the cloth though, kind of nice. These crossbars and side rails are really awesome. They came factory on this car like this. The side rails have the crossbars built into them. You don't have to buy aftermarket cross rails. You just unscrew these little star clips and pull up this bar here, and it'll fold across to the other side, and it'll make your roof rack usable from the factory. I'm going to go into a few things with the cruise control. This one has the eyesight cameras up here, which are, it's interesting to use the eyesight. I like it for some things, not so much for others. The cruise control is nice. It's adaptive cruise, and you can see when you hit these buttons here, you can change the distance you'll follow somebody at. They're a little confusing. I don't know why they put these arrows here. The arrows are there to differentiate between following closer and following further, but the way they have it set up, I would assume that if you hit this button, it would mean you would want to be closer to the next car, right? Because the arrow is pointing forward. It actually changes this, it increases the space between. So when I hit the up arrow, you see those bars there in the middle? That increases the distance. So these arrows are referring to the distance between you and the next car. So less distance, more distance between them. They should have put like one little bar here for less distance and 3 bars here for more distance. That would have been a little more clear. But it works really well. One thing I don't like about it is that if you are coming up really fast on another car that's going slower than you, it will almost hit the brakes to make sure it keeps that set distance away, which is not very good for your mileage. So I usually just turn the cruise off as I approach a car so I can coast down and keep my miles per gallon up a little bit higher. And it also will kind of surge the engine up to catch up to a car if it lags behind, like going up a hill or something like that. So that I don't really like about it. Going downhill, if you use the paddle shifters right here, I use the paddle shifters when I go downhill. I upshift so that it's in the highest gear possible. When you go down a hill, it'll want to keep the RPMs up a little bit higher in case you're in the mountains or something, so it can save your brakes and use the transmission to brake. If you turn on the paddle shifters and shift up to the next gear so that it uses the energy from the hill, so I'm not wasting energy by engine braking, and it turns the cruise control off, and it won't let you turn the cruise control back on until the computer puts the car back into regular drive mode. And sometimes it takes a while for it to do that, which is a little bit annoying. Not the end of the world, but just kind of annoying. Also, another thing I don't like about the cruise control is if you speed up really fast to pass someone, so let's say my cruise is set here at 64, if I speed up 10 miles an hour to pass someone, and then usually what I'll do is once I get back in front of them, I'll just let my speed coast down back to my cruise speed. Well, this car will actually put the brakes on to put you back down to your cruising speed. And again, that's not as good for your mileage. I'd rather just let it coast back down to my set cruise speed. Otherwise, it's a pretty well-rounded car, and I really enjoyed my time with the car. I would recommend it if you weren't too concerned with performance and just wanted something that was a very good utility car that can do pretty much anything and go anywhere. It's good for that, and that's what it's really made for.